before we get into all that, somebody who knows Paul Mainieri well and knows SEC baseball well, college baseball well, and certainly has some great, deep insight about this hire. By the way, Ray Tanner went 3-8 against Paul Mainieri when Mainieri was at LSU, 3-8 head-to-head during their years. So he's hired a good one, I think you could say, if he can take down Tanner like that. And we were looking at it. It's
Gary
unfortunate.
Gilmore's 2-0 against him.
It's unfortunate the teams didn't play in 2010 and 2011. You know,
Such
that would
a
have been
mistake by the SEC. I just can't believe they let the teams that were your reigning national champions not sit and play each other during the regular season.
Yeah.
You got to make that happen, SEC. I never understood that because during their heyday, when Carolina was as good as they were, LSU was right there with them. You should have had them play every regular season.
All right, so more from Coach Mainieri coming up. Now time to hear from Mike Morganelli. And Mike is brought to you by State Farm agent Gary Patterson. For 35 years, Gary's been serving the real estate needs from Lugoff to Lexington, Columbia to Blythewood. Your auto, home, life insurance, and business insurance can all be handled by Gary. He spends countless hours helping South Carolinians with all their insurance needs and making a difference in the community. So go check out GaryPatterson.net today, and he'll go over the best plans for you and your family. That's GaryPatterson.net.
Brought to you by Love Chevy, where the inventory is overflowing and the deals are in full bloom. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
All right, let's welcome in Mike Morgenstern to Sports Talk. Since I'm
Short-dressed man
screwing up names, let's do it well. Mike, welcome in. How are you?
Well, I'm doing better than the coach who you mispronounced his name multiple times on the day of his press conference.
I'm just breaking him in. That's all. I'm just breaking him in.
I see that. You're really kissing up by botching his name on the day he's on campus. What are you going to do next? Insult his family?
Oh, no.
I'm doing well in spite of all that. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. It's great to have you with us once again. So, what do you think of the hire? Certainly it came out of the blue, and Ray Tanner kept this one really under wraps as he was looking at other possibilities. And he ended up going back to somebody, reaching out to him for some insight and ended up making a deal.
I've been intently watching this and talking about it on the Inside the Gamecock show, and I can tell you that I certainly didn't see this coming, but what I did think was coming all along was I thought it was clear that he was looking for an established head coach with a pretty heavy resume. And, as I've pointed out, no matter what the sport is and no matter what the school is, you're going to get some rejection letters, and that's okay. That doesn't, you can't take that stuff personally. There's a lot of reasons why a coach who's already at an established job might say no. It might be money. It might be family. It might be that he's just content being there. It's not because they look at the South Carolina job and say, oh, I don't like that. But obviously, as it went deeper and deeper, people like us, I'll put you in this boat, I think, as well, Phil, we're kind of wondering, well, who's left out there? Mm-hmm. I mean, who is the established guy left out there? And the fact that it went as long as it did, that's when I knew clearly they were still looking. And then I started hearing rumors, and I'm sure you heard some of this too, and you've covered 1,000 of these to know that not every rumor is true, but that there was a quote-unquote kind of a mystery candidate, a guy that nobody's talking about, and obviously that was Paul Mainieri. And I don't think this just happened in a vacuum, over the last 72, 96 hours, whatever. One thing about Ray and my time following him and traveling with the team, the amount of respect that other coaches had for him, the relationships due to his personality being very affable that they had with him, everybody was in play. Ray was courted by LSU not too long ago. He was courted by Texas A&M. He was courted by Auburn. All these programs and coaches and ADs understood the value of Ray Tanner. On the flip side, Ray understood who some of the best coaches he faced. You just mentioned that record. That's a pretty strong record. There's not too many people that had that kind of winning percentage head-to-head against Ray and his Gamecock teams. But Paul Mainieri certainly is a special coach. The first time I saw Paul, and I'm pretty sure you were there, Phil, 2002 when he was the head coach of Notre Dame. And he led Notre Dame to 8 consecutive regionals. Notre Dame had never done that before, and they've never done it since. So this is not just a guy who was a byproduct of having what most people consider the best job in baseball in LSU. He's been a winner wherever he's been, and he's also been able to accumulate great people on his staff, and that's the case here too. You've got a dream assistant coach staff that I'm so happy they were able to keep Monty Lee. That's an obvious value. I just think it's a win-win-win. I really do. I think it's exactly the shot of adrenaline that this program needed. And while most of us didn't see it coming, that name, it certainly makes a lot of sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, let's stick with baseball, but go big picture now with the College World Series about to get underway at Omaha. First time since 1948 that the CWS has only had 2 conferences represented, SEC and ACC making up the field. Is that a sign of things to come, an anomaly, or do you anticipate it will be dominated by the Southeast, especially now that Texas and Oklahoma are coming into the SEC?
Well, it's been dominated by the SEC for a while. I mean, this is, 4 times now that they've had half the field in Omaha. That part's not a surprise. The ACC, it's the second time the ACC's had 4. I believe 2008 was the last time. But I look, what has been somewhat hard to figure is what has happened to West Coast baseball. And I know there were certainly some teams that were in there. When I say in there, regional rounds, even super regional rounds, but it's the lack of representation from the Pac, from the Big West. It really is. It's troubling if you're in that region. But if you're the people that run college baseball that clearly want this to be more of a national sport, it's a little bit disconcerting to see all 16 teams coming from programs essentially in the same part of the country in 2 leagues that feature that part of the country. And like you said, Oklahoma and Texas are knocking on the door. So I don't know if it's exactly what they want, but if you're an SEC fan, and for that matter, if you're an ACC fan, as long as it's still going, you certainly have no problem with it.
Who do you like out of that 8?
My picks at the beginning of the bracket were, when I say the bracket, I mean 64, not 8. Were Tennessee and A&M, and that hasn't changed. Now A&M, obviously, with a huge injury, that it takes away a little bit of my confidence in them. But yeah, I those would be to me the 2 most complete teams. So I'll stay with those 2.
All right, change gears for a little bit over to the big world of college athletics and certainly the money side of it. The Big 12, according to Brett McMurphy, in discussions with Allstate Insurance Company on naming rights, might be worth $30 to $50 million. It could be something like Big All-State Conference or All-State 12 Conference and the Big 12. They're also considering a $800 million private equity deal. To me, this is genius on the Big 12 side of the coin. I can't believe the SEC has not thought of this sooner. And will the SEC be next? And will we start referencing the league as the Regions Bank Southeastern Conference moving forward?
I don't rule anything out. The Big 12 has to be more clever, though, than the SEC and the Big 10. The ACC has to be more clever because they're about to be staring at a deficit or a gap, I should say, a disparity of revenues totaling about $40 million. And that's per year. Initially it's going to be about $20 million per year, but I think eventually just the numbers, if they're accurate, that grows to about 40. And so it's pretty hard to compete. $40 million a year over 10 years, nearly $500 million. At some point, you need to close that gap as best you can, and I think they're trying to find any way they can. I mean, look, as I mentioned last week, every school, including the SEC, just got handed about a $22 million invoice annually in terms of player compensation. So don't be surprised if your favorite college football stadium will have a oversized Tostitos bag painted on the 25-yard line to add some extra revenues, or more in line with the distinguished host there, maybe a Viagra ad, whatever the case may be.
Hello.
Money is money, revenues are revenues, and I think that's coming sooner rather than later.
Cholesterol shots, yes. Viagra, not necessary.
I believe it all. I believe it all.
So, I mean, and just taking it a step farther, what's going to stop an athletic department at a school to seek out a financial sponsor to put their name on the athletic department? You know, the Clemson Tiger, the BMW Clemson Tigers, or the Boeing South Carolina Gamecocks, or something. I mean, what's to stop them now? Because really, and the door is wide open for any type of thinking, and any type of revenue that you can create apparently is being, being approved, being winked at.
That's right. I mean, how long have we've just kind of gotten used to this now? But how long have we seen head coaches at a post-game press conference, and you've got your little banner there with the school colors behind the coach, and you've got the school logo, and then boom, there's a logo of a particular business. I mean, that's obviously bought and paid for.
Now, I did see one tweet related to the Big 12 thing in that talk, and this guy broke it down. He said, "Look, it's only going to be $2 or $3 million per team if this goes through, and once this contract, they divide it up. So it's not." It's not going to be life-saving money per se in this era of the kind of money these teams are going to be needing to offset the expenses they have coming up.
That's right, but what it does is it opens the floodgates for more.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think they stop there. I mean, we already have, of course, when they put the nets up, it's the All-State field goal, extra point. And doing what I do for a living, I'm used to reading everything and anything that can be sponsored during the course of calling a game. So I kind of have a good feel for how this works. And there are sales staffs and marketing teams right now for every university thinking about extra revenue sources. And it used to be you just had your radio network and you had signage, signage at the stadium, signage on the scoreboards. Now I think they're going above and beyond that. They're finding more and more ways to put more money in the cash register.
Yeah, and I guess this is born out of necessity. I'm sitting here thinking, why is this happening now? As you mentioned, it was that way for so long, and it was taboo to litter your field and everything else with various advertisements. But I mean, things are born out of necessity, and the athletic departments are facing this huge payment, as you alluded to, related to the to that lawsuit being settled and that money having to be paid back to those players. And we even see now, and it's not going to be an end, I don't think, anytime soon. You saw, I'm sure, where the NC State national championship team of '83 has filed a lawsuit because they want to be paid for what they did back then. And I mean, if they're successful, then my gosh, that's just going to open up another big door for players to be compensated from the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no legal scholar, but 83 is a bit of a reach. That might be a little bit of a stretch to try to say, hey, remember us 40 years ago?
Well, how far back does the House settlement? How far back does it go? Do you have to remember? How many years back?
Yeah. Yes, it was. Oh gosh, last week I had this on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
2016, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and somebody explained to me that's much smarter than me on this that there was a reason why, like, that number wasn't just thrown out of a hat. That number corresponded with an actual legal statute of limitations, something to that effect. Again, I'm well out of my domain, but that's the number that I remember, and I don't think that, I mean, when does it stop at that point? To your point, like, okay, I'm the widow of Chuck Bednarik, the 1950s. I mean, am I gonna hire counsel? And well, yeah, Chuck was a hell of a player.
Yes,
and there is an award named after him.
Stuck his head in there a lot of times. Yeah.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. Oh yes. No, I mean, at some you've got to draw the line, and I think at some point that line will be drawn. But what I know is that the $22 million, that's in perpetuity. That's only going to go up.
Yeah.
That's a revenue sharing number. Remember, there's two lawsuits that were basically going on. One is for the former players. One is for current and future players, and that's where the $22 million kicks in. That's basically a TV revenue sharing figure, and then what they're waiting on is for Title IX. That'll only be settled in a courtroom. So, okay, I just got a $22 million invoice, but I don't know exactly how I can spend it because I'm waiting on another lawsuit.
Yeah.
So if I'm a championship women's basketball program that loses $8 million a year, then I still have to wait on the legal system to say whether or not I've got to spend 11 of the $22 million on women's sports just because, or do they say, no, that's not the intent of Title IX. The intent of Title IX was for opportunity, which the ladies have. The intent of Title IX was to treat your athletes when it comes to travel, make sure if the men's basketball team has charter flights and the women's basketball team has charter, well, that's already been taken care of. But clearly, like anything in the real world, the starting forward for the Phoenix Mercury is not going to make as much as LeBron James, and there's a reason for that. And I would imagine the tenets of market value, since we're treating them all like pros now anyway, let's go ahead and incorporate the real world into the college world, and that would mean that the schools would be able to spend the $22 million as they see fit. But whether or not that holds up in court, I have no idea. I have absolutely no clue.
All right, Professor Mike Morgan, economics class taught right here.
Oh, that was a heavy segment.
Deep.
Woo. Good stuff.
It was deep stuff
I
there.
worked up an appetite with that one.
Well, you go get yourself a taco, or maybe head over to the varsity and solve that problem. And you have a great weekend. I'd wish you a Father's Day weekend, but I don't think you're a dad unless you're counting the pooch as a child. So.
Well, he passed away a few months ago, so
why do I even have to bring that up?
Well, I mean, you prompted it, so now I feel like I have to at least
you mean
set
Kramer?
the record straight.
This is Kramer?
Well, Kramer died about 10 years ago.
Oh, I'm
this
sorry.
is Baxter.
Baxter.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. You want to bring up
Sorry,
the death
Mike.
of my relatives while you're at it? I mean, jeez.
Well,
This
I'm
has
sorry
become a
about
really
Kramer, and I'm
depressing
sorry
segment.
about Baxter. I feel terrible.
You should.
Yeah.
Say 5 Hail Marys and 5 pulmonaries.
Well done,
great.
Mike.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much. Be sure to tip your waitress on the way out. All right, Mike Morgan on the move.